All right. So let's dive right into it. Everybody's awake and after lunch, yeah? We've got a lot of smart minds up here talking about what businesses need to do to prepare for the wave of Web3. So we'll get my bias again out of the way for those who know it. I think we're building parallel customer journeys now, and if we haven't mastered the touch points across that customer journey in Web 2, now's our chance to do that and create a new one. But that is how I'll tee us off. So who wants to go first? All right, let's go with the UK guy, because that'll probably sound the most intelligent. So what do entrepreneurs need to do, Erik, or Gareth, sorry, to prepare their business for Web3?
One thing I want to do on that question you've asked is slightly change the question, which is always a great.
Not a problem, because it wasn't my question.
This is how you deal with questions. You just don't answer them and you answer something else. So I want to remove the word entrepreneur and just generally leave the word business. How does businesses prepare? And I think, again, a theme in my answers, as per the last talk, is I'm quite boring, and so it really comes down to the people, process, technology question. Like, what is going to change with your staff? The skills going to change? Are your customers going to change? What is going to change with your process? Things are going to. I can get onto that in a second. And finally, what's going to change with the technology? I think the conference name maybe has answered that one for us. Now, there's a whole raft of things that we could go into, and I will just talk about one and then allow other people to take the mic away from me. And the one I'm going to get into is, I think if you take Web3 to its logical conclusion, you know, each individual is empowered to hold their own data, which means that businesses are no longer holding customer data. This means your business model is not going to be as intrinsically sticky, because you are more like a gateway to, you know, the distributed ledger where people's information will be stored. And I think what that means in terms of preparation is you basically need to have a capability dedicated to making sure your pipeline to the blockchain is the best, the most fun, the most competitive, the most value giving, for want of a better word. And I think it's that transition from being a kind of hoarder of client data to being an enabler of your clients to make use of Web3, blockchain as a data repository, and you just, you know, help them get there. I think that's the biggest change I want to talk about. So I will pause talking, because I've spoken a lot.
De La Muerte, let's go to you.
So the question is, how do businesses prepare
or vamp off of what he said. I think he brought up a lot of good points.
So IP3 is working to help established Web3 companies take their IP successfully to Hollywood. So we're really reaching the whole world. One of the things we've really realized is that for people who live and breathe Web3 for the last 2 years, how do we make that approachable to the rest of the world? How do we make it seamless? And now there's developed technologies where, it's easier for people out there to have a wallet. It's easier to purchase products on the Web3 using their credit card. Like, now there's ways to embrace all kinds of customers into the Web3 space. It was very sort of secluded just for Web3 tech people before, but now it's becoming much more approachable. And then I think for businesses, like, Web3 shouldn't be a scary thing. It is really about enhancing the user experience, the customer experience. And in the case of IP3, we're really looking to flourish the fan capabilities. So if you have a project like Batman, originally you would not want anyone else to touch Batman. You want to control everything, all things Batman. But Web3 is about creating a space where Batman is still protected, but maybe there's a place in the sandbox where fans can create merchandise, they can create posters. So it's about creating more inclusivity with the community, with the fans, and sharing in your business model with the community that brings you up.
Yeah, I think as we go to Rico, the tie-in with those two things is when you have fandom and a promiscuous customer at the same time, that becomes your differentiator, is how well you create opportunities to share in that value and extend that value. Rico, let's go to you.
Thanks. As a VC perspective, we're looking at how Web3 can disrupt the current Web2 market. And I always tell the project's owners or entrepreneurs or core team, please go back to basic and solve the Web 2.1 issue first. Do not come and tell me I'm Web 3 ready, I'm Web 2.5 ready. What infrastructure have you got in your market that you are currently targeting? Are the people ready for Web 3 yet? How long will it take them to learn about Web 3? And how can they be benefiting from Web 3? What is Web 3? Everyone have a different definition of explain to me Web 3. To me, personally, Web 3 is about sovereignty, own control of your rights in financial freedom and your own data. That's where the future consumer is going to be when it's fully Web 3. Right now, most of our data are not in our own control because we are still in the Web 2 space. Right now, Web 2 companies are competing among themselves for our data because we don't even own our own data. What if we own the data and we can monetize and control the privacy of our data all in one place? That's where I'm looking at the Web 3. And right now, as a VC and incubator, we are looking into solutions that can solve these expensive problems. So for the businesses who are looking into Web 3 and how Web 3 is going to change your business, start looking into exactly what our colleague said here, what is the customer going to benefit from this whole innovation? And how can you be part of this? And in a Web 3 mindset, there's no such thing as competitor anymore because we are all interconnected in this whole industry.
Well, I think Rico makes a great point about data ownership. In the US, the statistic, that range that data monetization is per individual is like $600 to $1,000 US. And in the US, that's honestly not an incredibly meaningful amount of money that's going to move the needle. But in developing and third world nations, that could be a paradigm shift in an annual income. So that's an interesting thread to pull on. But I think that we maybe need to ask a better quality of question. It's not how do we get ready for Web3, it's how do we create the raving fan culture within our business that is going to compel and propel our followers and our community to join us wherever we go. And so if we do that and we look at it as that as our primary purpose to create that culture that they would never possibly think about leaving us, then you can start asking questions about how do I really create customer lifetime value? How do I create products and services that truly enrich their life and don't just make me money? And so one of the things I challenge any company I invest into is who already has your primary customer, your ideal customer in a non-competing industry? Go partner with them. Find ways to collaborate and elevate together. Because my entire career has been predicated on success leaves clues. And so I want to model what I do off of other people's success. I really don't want to go be the trailblazer in any industry because that, generally speaking, that person doesn't survive. But if I find great people to partner with, it makes the world a lot easier.
It's precisely. It's about synergies and how can businesses actually create strategic alliances to work on the problems, to solve their customers' problem. And by the end of the day, it's about how well the customer use their data and make more money by themselves. It's not about how we make money from the customer anymore. So that mindset change and switch needs to happen for the business owners to start with.
Yeah, I think you guys are hitting on a good segue. So, this notion of co-opetition, which is kind of how I orient to that, which is you compete and you're trying to win, but you're doing it through the alliances that you make and the synergies that you develop. It also requires a new set of ethics, which I think we're seeing kind of the bad side of the old way, reveal itself this last couple of weeks. But it's an opportunity more than it is a challenge because we're exposing kind of the broken underlying ethical and kind of business design questions that if we don't solve those, it really doesn't matter what technology we throw on top of it because we're just going to perpetuate more of the same in a new way. So what are you guys doing individually in your organizations?
Chris, hold on. Are you referring to FTX, I would assume?
I'm not just FTX. I mean, yeah. There's a whole slew of
Voyager, Celsius. I mean, you can name them. But the problem with all of that, those weren't decentralized. All of them were centralized organizations. So if you look at truly decentralized products, there's very, very little opportunity for nefarious players unless it's a malicious smart contract to start.
Yeah, but that's too, and I like that we're going to debate this a little bit. Feel free to jump in. I agree, and I also don't think that's a complete enough way to look at it, because everyone that says decentralization is the key forgets that Mother Nature always wins, and Mother Nature uses both, right? Our brains are the central nervous system, but when we cut ourselves shaving or something at a peer-to-peer level, we solve that problem. We don't have to engage the whole body. There's a beautiful design in nature that we can learn from as we mix decentralized networks and peer-to-peer stuff with centralized efficiencies. We've just gotten lopsided in the centralized direction. And what we don't want to do is get lopsided in the decentralized direction and not create the efficiencies we need, because then we won't scale. But I think that's where the opportunity lies, is if you can redefine the incentives and the ethics right, and if you can create sovereignty at the level that users and individuals can opt in or actually own their proxy at whatever level they want without telling them that mandate. That's where the opportunity to kind of innovate lies. But I'm happy to have somebody else jump on this pile on.
I don't think I'm well positioned enough to kind of jump in between you two on this thing. So basically, I don't care to pile on this, but I think I agree with both your perspectives. And I look at it from my amateurish world as you have a decentralized, basically database layer, and then you're going to have some centralization at an application layer, because they're going to be features that are going to have data that won't necessarily always be written to chain, I don't think. And so I think basically pockets of centralization will exist on top of it. But I'm going to defer to you two on this, I think, and allow someone else to speak.
Well, I think also there's like a principle of economics. Like when something is new to the marketplace and it's successful, in this case, we sort of had the creation of Bitcoin that created this whole new philosophy. It started off, there was some early adoption, then there became some success, and maybe nefarious people from other places were like, oh, we're going to jump into this space and create something because it's hot. Money is flowing here right now. We can just start something and people are going to throw money at us. Nobody, and the market, the financial people maybe, I'm not saying everybody, maybe just throwing money at it because, oh, this is new, it's exciting, we're going to make a couple bucks and get out. But they weren't necessarily believing in the principles of what Bitcoin was built on, or the idea of decentralization. And so there was no stopgap between like what the concept of decentralization was and what's happened in the last 3 years in the marketplace. But maybe now with the fallout, we've had some market corrections, obviously. Hopefully that will reestablish the playing field, and the bar will rise, and people will start to say, hey, you have to have ethical business practices while you're creating this, again, decentralized place, which should be the whole community holding each other to those standards.
I think with what happened in the last 6 months, primarily, the regulators are very, very concerned. If I were to regulate, I would like, what is going on here? I thought you guys have regulations. What is FATF doing? What is SEC doing? What is your own country, central bank looking to CBDC doing? What is the balance between a DeFi, where they have full control of what they want to do with their wealth, versus someone who is doing everything KYC, AML, running business, reporting tax and everything? Where is the balance, and where is the choice of the person who owns the company, owns the wealth? And that is what we are talking about here. It's an ethical issue, definitely. Even without blockchain, there's been a lot of ethical issues anyway. What happened to FTX happened in many other countries and many other scenarios with central banks and normal banks, countries going bankrupt. What the hell happened with a country if a country can go bankrupt, like Venezuela? How can a currency drop 70% of its market value without blockchain? So let's not go backwards, and what we should look into is the future, where the younger generations are changing their behavior of spending, of consuming, right? How is Web3 relevant to them? And what is the product and services that they will be consuming versus what we or our grandparents are consuming now. I think that's what regulators are looking at. How can we protect these young minds from being scammed with the right amount of regulations around it, and to educate them and make them be aware of their own rights and their own choice and their own responsibility and how they use this technology for the betterment of themselves, the family, and the country. So this whole regulations around it has been involved by the stakeholders and the industry, and together with the government regulators to understand what is our country looking at. Philippines is very interesting to all of us because it's proven to be a creator's economy already. So we are on a very good stage here in Philippines versus many other countries who haven't even started yet, so to speak. We have countries who do not have IDs for the citizens, unbanked communities because they don't have IDs, there's no KYC, there's no bank account, right? About 2 billion without ID, 1.7 billion without a bank account, right? That's the global stats. Looking at our, Filipinos and the whole ecosystem here, you guys are very, very fortunate. You guys have a very good place to take off from here to the next step. And it's about how you seize the opportunity here using all these technologies that you have. And some of them prove to be not working in certain countries. Hey, it may work here if the government takes the right regulatory environment to protect it and regulate it. So there's no right and wrong here. It's about how we all come together as a stakeholder. And today, we witnessed the Philippine Blockchain Council set up. It's a good start where we are all coming together and nurture this market and work together.
Erik, you live in the American hub of this kind of activity in Miami. You organize your own event and you skipped Art Basel like I did to come here. Why?
Well, I think it's the opportunity. Full disclosure, Art Basel is an amazing event. It has really become a Web3 hub, but it's established. And so I don't know that I'm going to learn anything new there. Here in the Philippines, the opportunity is so abundant. And in Southeast Asia, you've already shown that you have an unquenchable appetite for cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and gaming and what have you. So I think that where we go from here is really limitless. I see this, society that every single one of you in this audience has a smartphone, and that can be your conduit into Web3. And I'll be honest, I don't really buy into the whole Zuck, we're all going to wear goggles for the metaverse. I just look at what Web3 is. It's going to be a more immersive vision of what Web 2 is. It's going to be a website that you go and have a rich immersive experience in. And so getting back to the topic of the panel, if I was an entrepreneur with a company, I would be laser focused on how do I create there? How do I integrate these concepts of Web3 today so when I make the full switch over in a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever that time horizon is, it's frictionless. And I brought it up earlier, but I'll bring it up again because I really think it's an elegant solution to bring people into the space. What Starbucks is doing is genius. And they're not even uttering the word NFT except to us inside baseball people. It's just a different way of doing things. And that's where we're going to have to go. It's not going to be, oh, here's your MetaMask wallet and here are your keys, because that is going to melt people's minds. And they're not ready for that. But the idea of cashless, we've been there. 2022, 13% of all transactions in the US are cash. 10 years ago, that was 29%. And I'm sorry, I got that stat wrong. It's 16% currently. So it's 13% down in a decade. Like, we're going there.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting opportunity to onboard, right? Which is loyalty and inside of existing brand legacy, Starbucks being one. I have a friend who runs a company called Project Venkman that is doing a major project with one of the larger airlines related to their air miles, and the ability for you and I to have a secondary marketplace where I could say, you know what, I don't need these miles, and you could buy them from me, and like these efficiencies that really make sense, that are user-centric, but also still have the brand's kind of metrics and economies in mind. So let's talk a little bit about where we think low-hanging fruit is. Where's the low-hanging fruit if you're operating a brand, or if you're trying to build infrastructure as a startup for a brand, where do you think the opportunities lie in the next 24 months that people should be thinking about, especially in Southeast Asia?
I think with the blockchain, the easiest opportunity is in basically data audit. It's such a simple use case. Load something up to the blockchain, read it, check it hasn't changed, use that to prove your audit on pretty much any business process where that matters. You know, I don't know, be it an insurance report, be it an automobile supply chain, be it your financial reports to your regulators. It's like part of an assessment to prove that, you know, your financials are as you recorded them at the time you recorded them. I think it's such a simple thing, and I think we should be looking not just in Southeast Asia, but as the appetite is here, I think everyone should be looking basically to use the blockchain to really speed up those kinds of data quality and data checking processes. I think that's the lowest hanging fruit from my perspective.
I think for me, my perspective, it comes from PR and marketing, communication. Right now, people should just be communicating. Like you in the audience, you're getting educated, but then you have to turn around and share that with your audience. Share with them like ways for them to be involved in your business. Like you were just mentioning, like this secondary market for points, airline points. I mean, that's so perfect. It's a perfect example. Also, in America, we just had this blow up with Taylor Swift and the ticket sales there. There's opportunity everywhere we look to make things easier for the consumers, like Erik was mentioning, and then for them to be participating in the growth of your business. But communication, communication, communication. If you're not sharing these ways for the community or your audience or your customer to support you more, they don't know how to do it. But often, if they're a customer and they're supportive and they're part of your community, they want to see you succeed and they want to be one of the first ones to say, oh, I have a Bored Ape, or I'm part of the Starbucks program, or you can buy my air miles. But you need to share that information with your audience. So communicate, communicate, communicate.
From my point of view, most of the current crypto hodlers will go on a holiday because they will just wait for the next halving. And for most of the people who are just coming into the space, it's time to build. 2022, 2023 is a time to build your foundation, identify the lowest hanging fruit and the problem that's relevant to you and your community, and focus on building solutions that solve their problem. 2024 is a time of skilling, harvesting, and that's where we are seeing a lot of positivity coming out in 2024 from a VC's point of view. So a lot of us are actually scouting around for talent who are going to be there for the next 2 to 3 years, because it's not easy where everyone is building, competing. The competition is huge, but it's the best time to invest and look for the best talent in the market. So from my point of view, do not stop and go on holiday like most of the crypto bros, because they already made it. They know what their position. They will know what is price or what they are in. Hodlers, they know it. But do not be like them. This is a time to actually build, and this is an opportunity for you to make a lot of learning and a lot of harvesting in the next 3 years.
Parting thoughts, Erik?
I completely agree. I think the opportunity to quietly build over the next 2 to 3 years is massive, and then come out like a raging bull. But to your question, I would say the biggest opportunity is still in real estate. Globally, that's a $400 trillion asset class that primarily is locked liquidity-wise. And so if we could open up those channels to microloans in Southeast Asia, into Africa, into Latin America, I think it could be a paradigm shift for what we're able to do and achieve globally. And that is just now beginning. And the opportunities in other countries versus the US are actually significantly better, because the regulatory environment and specifically the titling network in the US, there are 3,600 different municipalities that give titles versus most other countries are singular.
Right. No, that's a great point. I think that is an area that we have to do a whole nother panel on, real estate. But parting thoughts, guys, I think the takeaway would be NFTs aren't JPEGs. They're the containerization of everything. If you understood what shipping container standardization did, which I know Southeast Asia knows a lot about, for the global consumption of physical goods, we're going to live in a time where a generation will consume more digital assets than physical ones moving forward. What is the container? And the container will be a token. And that's the opportunity. So thanks for the panel. Give them a hand.
Thank you.
All right.